In terms of climates, this is how our world looks. According to the Köppen climate classification, there are 5 main climate types, being tropical, arid, temperate, continental, and polar. There are then another 30 or so different subclimates within this main 5, such as hot summer Mediterranean climate, hot summer humid continental climate, and monsoon influenced subarctic climate, to name a few. Some of these sub-classifications are absolute mouthfuls to say the least. In terms of climate diversity, there are some very boring countries, such as most of the countries in North Africa and the Middle East, where the majority climate classification is classed as hot desert climate. This comes to no surprise, as this is where you'll find the Sahara and empty quarter desert. The temperatures here can be unbearable, and the unpredictability of the weather is very low. By unpredictable, I mean this is because you know it's going to be hot and sunny pretty much every day of the year. Whereas in, say, Manchester in England, you could easily see 4 different seasons in a single day. Generally, the bigger the country, the more diverse climate it will have, quite simply due to how much area it covers. Specifically, the longer the country, the more climates you'd expect, as the further or closer you get to the equator, the more the climate tends to change. Let's take Chile as our first example. The country is notoriously long, at around 4,200 kilometers. The most northern points of the country extend about halfway up the continent, putting it at a higher latitude than places like Rio in Brazil. Yet its most southern points are found at the very bottom of the continent in the region known as Patagonia. Across this long and narrow country, you'll find many different types of terrain, ranging from mountain ranges to deserts to fjords and even jungles. However, size doesn't always matter for this topic, as Indonesia, which is a huge country spread across Southeast Asia and Oceania, contains a very small variation of climates. This is mainly due to it being a very wide but relatively short country in terms of length. It also sits on and around the equator. This means that most of the country experiences the same sort of climate, being tropical rainforest. So on this map, we can easily see the big differences between the two. Chile is kind of like a rainbow, and Indonesia is pretty much fully dark blue. The UK, which of course is where I'm from, experiences what is known as a temperate climate. As far as safe weather goes, it's as safe as you can get. Most of France and New Zealand is also classed as temperate. Temperate climates experience moderate temperatures and distinct seasons, including warm to hot summers and cool to cold winters. Apart from the odd flood and yearly heatwave, the weather in most of the UK, although sometimes depressing, is very livable. The same applies for New Zealand. However, there you will find some earthquakes and volcanoes too, so it's definitely not as safe as the UK. A country whose climate variation may surprise you is Mexico. I'm not sure about you, but when I think of Mexico, I think of very hot weather, with semi-arid landscapes with cactus and small shrubs. Oh, and nice beaches and coast too. However, Mexico has a very varied climate, especially in the north of the country. In the south, where you'll find places like Tulum and Cancun, it's quite blue, which is tropical, similar to what you'd see in most of the Amazon in South America. Then, as you move further north through the country, you see many different climate classifications, and they're all close to one another, ranging from hot desert climate to subtropical highlands to semi-arid climates. Again, this makes complete sense as Mexico is a rather long country. Australia is another country with many different climates. The country is dominated by the hot desert climate classification, which extends from most of the central areas to its west. This is where you'll find the Great Australian Desert, which is the second largest non-polar desert on Earth. The areas that surround the hot desert regions are semi-arid, so not as extreme in terms of temperatures. The most northern points of the country, which extend not far off Indonesia and Papua New Guinea, are classed as tropical savanna climates. Here you will experience distinctive dry and wet seasons. Along its southeastern coast and across into Tasmania, you will find temperate climates. This is where you'll find cities like Canberra and Melbourne, two of the cities with the highest living standards on Earth, perhaps partially due to their livable climates. On its most southwestern coast, where you'll find the city of Perth, is where you'll find this little dash of yellow, which is classed as hot summer Mediterranean climate. This is perhaps one of the most desirable climates on Earth. The only other places you'll really find this climate is of course across the Mediterranean in Europe, along the US's western coast, specifically California, and other small spots around the world, such as this area where you'll find Cape Town. This climate is kind of similar to temperate climates, however summers are hotter and winters are comfortably milder. So there's no universally agreed answer to which country has the most climates, but there's certainly two who can compete for that top spot. Any idea which two? It is the US and China. They are coincidentally both around the same size and sit at a similar latitude. The US has a bit of a bonus with Alaska and Hawaii to help boost their total. The east of the US is nice and easy to analyse. The northern parts are bluish, which are generally humid continental climates. The southeast is primarily humid subtropical, and then its very southeast, where you'll find places like Miami, is classed as tropical monsoon climate. However, the western part of the country is a complete different story. There are many different types of terrains and climates, ranging from hot and cold desert climates to Mediterranean to cold semi-arid climates. Now China looks quite a bit different. It has significantly more cold desert climates, especially within its western parts. Unlike the contiguous US, China has a lot of tundra climate, especially around the Tibet area near the Himalayas. China's far northwest, which extends even further north than most of Mongolia, is classed as humid continental and even subarctic. China's eastern coast, where you'll find the majority of its population, experiences humid subtropical climate and oceanic climates, easily the most livable across the country. So for the country with the most climate zones, you're looking at either the US or China. Australia, Argentina and India all have notably high amounts too. For the country with the least variation in climates, well, there's quite a few. As mentioned earlier, most of the Middle East and Northern African countries. Countries like Mauritania, Oman, the UAE and Qatar all appear to be 100% red. Even countries like Egypt and Saudi Arabia have tiny little dots of variations. Saudi Arabia, for example, has tiny bits of pink down here, which is classed as cold desert climates. This is likely because the altitude is higher here, as this is a mountainous area of the country. So there we have it, some climates from countries from around the world. Let us know what the climates are like in your country and if you love it or hate it. And as always, thank you very much for watching and we'll see you very soon in our next video.